These were the stakeholders independent research facility Grain Growers Limited was working for when it undertook the recently concluded Australian Wheat for China project. Funded by GRDC for the past 3 years, the project's purpose was to prove to Chinese millers and noodles manufacturers that they needed premium quality Australian wheat to meet the needs of China's increasingly wealthy and expanding middle class.
We wanted to get in and understand the Chinese requirements for premium products so that we understood the technical wheat quality requirements for those products, to be able to identify which Australian wheats best serve that market. And then from a Chinese perspective, they actually indicated that they would like to be able to blend Australian wheat to provide these premium products with their own Chinese wheat. And so we developed a project that would address each of those principles, including the use of Australian wheat to blend with the Chinese wheat to produce these premium noodle products.
In China, workshops and trials were undertaken with flour millers and noodle experts, and feedback recorded on different types of Australian wheat quality, preferences for protein content, starch properties and colour characteristics.
We'd made noodles here in Australia and dried them and taken them to China to run these trials. And we had some comments when we were running these workshops that from these Chinese noodle experts that they were the best noodles they'd ever tasted, and they'd clearly not had access to Australian wheat in these sort of circumstances before.
Dried noodles from China were brought back to Australia for comparison. On the right, noodles made with Chinese red wheat. On the left, those made with Australian white wheats.
Yeah, firm and elastic.
Firm and elastic, yes.
Which is what we've been told the market prefers.
Yep.
Bright white in colour, the noodles made from Australian wheat have better texture or bounce when eaten, what's referred to as elasticity. In contrast, the Chinese wheat flour produces a darker colour because mostly red wheat varieties are grown in China.
You can see already the colour's quite undesirable, but we've just got to concentrate on the texture now. So once you bite through the noodle, it becomes mushy. So that's one of the key differences why Australian wheat is preferred throughout Asia, that we can achieve that type of texture advantage.
Yeah.
While Australian wheat has been exported to China in the past, the Chinese have been opportunistic buyers, importing Australian standard white when prices are low, storing the grain for up to 5 years, and then selling it on the domestic market at auction. A system that has meant knowledge about Australian wheat has been until now very limited. The collaboration and cooperation created by this project has given Australian wheat greater exposure with China's noodle manufacturers.
It raised a lot of interest in the technical characteristics of Australian wheat, and it was also an opportunity to talk about the wide range of wheat that we have.
More than 60 blends have been made and tested as part of the project, and Australian hard varieties included in the mix. What the research of the past 3 years has done is prove the concept that premium Australian wheat will help China satisfy its growing demand for premium food products. It also developed blends for that purpose and put dollars into growers' pockets.
So we've now got Chinese mills coming to Australia purchasing wheat in containers specifically for some of these premium products. So that increasing demand and competition for Australian wheat in Asia has got to be good for our farmers.